The Little Round Top Fight, Part 2, to the Saddle. This map shows the situation at around 4 in the afternoon on July 2, the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg. This map is focused on the Little Round Top Fight, so you only see that part of the battlefield, and you only see the units that fought at or near Little Round Top. The map shows 4 northern brigades. You see Fisher and Ward's brigades, each marked with a single icon. Ward's brigade is at Devil's Den on the extreme left end of the Union line. Ward's brigade is part of Birney's division of 3rd Corps, which extends off to the northwest. And there's a single regiment, part of Ward's brigade, placed forward as skirmishers. That's the 2nd U.S. Sharpshooters. And notice also a U.S. artillery battery at Devil's Den, Smith's Battery. Then there are Weed's, Vincent's, and Fisher's brigades, all part of the 5th Corps, the Union Reserve. Fisher's brigade is back here. Also, you see the 4 regiments from Weed's brigade, each regiment with its own icon, just south of Fisher's brigade. Both Weed's and Fisher's brigades are resting in place, waiting for orders. Vincent's brigade is the 4 regiments here. They were ordered forward and are on their way to reinforce the Union position near the wheat field, which is to the southwest, here. On the left, you see the south end of the Confederate line. They're trying to outflank the Union line, and you see the 4 brigades that make up Hood's division. In the front line, you see the regiments from Robertson's and Law's brigades. Robertson's brigade is 4 regiments from Texas and Arkansas. Regiments from Robertson's brigade are marked by black text. The 5 regiments which make up Law's brigade are all from Alabama. Regiments from Law's brigade are marked with blue text. In Part 1, I mentioned that Law's brigade marched 28 miles in 11 hours to get here. And according to Bradley Gottfried in his book, Brigades of Gettysburg, during the march, the men complained about their empty canteens and the lack of rest stops. Harry Fans, in his book, Gettysburg the Second Day, wrote that when Law's brigade finally reached the position you see here, they thought they had time to send out water details. And Fans wrote that some men returned with water taken from a green pond they found nearby, but the 22 men from the 15th Alabama water detail had not returned when the attack started. Law's brigade will start this attack tired and dehydrated on a humid 80-degree day. Lieutenant General Longstreet is in charge of the attack. General Lee ordered Longstreet to attack up Emmitsburg Road and roll up the Union flank. Apparently no one on the southern side except General Lee is happy about this, but orders are orders. On the northern side, there's concern because the Little Round Top is unoccupied. Whoever gets control of the Round Tops will dominate the Union position on Cemetery Ridge. I don't know why Little Round Top was unoccupied. Ultimately, of course, it's Major General Meade's responsibility, but some fingers do point at Major General Sickles, commander of the 3rd Corps. It seems that maybe there should be a race to see who'll be first to get to Little Round Top. But Hood's division was ordered to attack north, not east. How's this going to work out? Hood's division starts their attack about 4 p.m. At the same time, an artillery battle starts up between Confederate artillery along here and the U.S. artillery near the Peach Orchard, here. And notice that Hood's infantry goes straight east rather than north. I'm very interested in this, but I don't know why it happened. One writer suggested a couple reasons why the attack went east toward the Round Top, rather than north as General Lee ordered. First, the presence of Union artillery and infantry in the Devil's Den to the northeast, and the fire from the 2nd U.S. in their front. These would naturally pull units to the right, because they would face an immediate threat to their flank, and if the Confederate attackers moved north, like this, these Union units will be in their rear. And second, Confederate commanders lost control of their units. The division commander, Major General Hood, was wounded and taken off the field early in the attack, and the rough ground made it hard to keep units under control. Oliver Norton, in his book, The Attack and Defense of Little Round Top, wrote, "The ground over which the Confederates advanced was rocky and very rough, divided by numerous stone fences and other obstructions." Unquote. If you want to see a video that gives you a good idea of the problems crossing this piece of ground, I recommend Gettysburg Day 2, Part 3, Hood's Division Initial Attacks, which is on the Datameister's channel on YouTube. The video starts with the narrator following the path the attack followed, camera running, and about 3 minutes into it he says, "This ground is an absolute Charlie Foxtrot." Unquote. At the end of this video, I'll provide a link for that video, plus 3 other videos I like about the Little Round Top fight that you can find on the Park Service channel, Gettysburg NPS. One man in the 4th Texas remembered the charge being made not at an orderly double quick, but in a wild, frantic, and desperate run, yelling, screaming, and shouting, over ditches, up and down hill, bursting through garden fences and shrubbery. Unquote. Right about this point, General Hood, the division commander, is wounded in an artillery blast and taken off the field. And this was a problem because inevitably his replacement, Brigadier General Law, the brigade commander, is not as effective. And there's a time lag while A, they find General Law to transfer command, and B, Law notifies his replacement to take over as brigade commander, and C, the other officers are told of the changes. Notice that Robertson's brigade splits. 2 regiments go northeast with General Robertson toward Devil's Den, and the other 2 follow Law's brigade to the east. The left wing will join the fight for Devil's Den and the wheat field, and in this video you won't hear any more about them. The right wing, 4th and 5th Texas, joins Law's brigade and the fight for Little Round Top. Also notice that the 2 regiments on Law's right, the 44th and 48th Alabama, fall back and then head north. The exact reason for this is a bit murky. One possibility is that Law sensed his brigade was drifting too far to the right, and redirecting 2 regiments to the left was simpler than pulling all 5 regiments to the north. Plus, General Robertson is quoted as writing that both brigades were suffering from heavy and destructive, unquote, fire from Union artillery and sharpshooters, and that would be artillery placed along here and at Devil's Den, and the sharpshooters in the 2nd U.S. here. Norton wrote that Law sent these 2 regiments on the right, the 44th Alabama and 48th Alabama, to the north to attack Smith's battery at Devil's Den. The 3 regiments on Law's left continued straight forward, chasing the sharpshooters. Somewhere around this point, General Law, the brigade commander, rode up to Colonel Oates, commander of the 15th Alabama, and told him that he was now on the brigade's right, that the 47th Alabama would stay with him, and if they got separated from the brigade, Colonel Oates would oversee both regiments, and that his orders now were to go up the valley between the Round Tops until he found the Union left, turn it, and do all the damage he could. So the 47th and 15th Alabama are now Law's right flank, and they're now commanded by Colonel Oates, and they start to chase the 2nd U.S. up Big Round Top. And notice to the north that Union infantry, Vincent's brigade, is approaching. General Meade has ordered the Union 5th Corps to come up and reinforce the Union left, and Vincent's brigade is the first unit sent forward. And I'm guessing that at this point, Major General Sykes, the 5th Corps commander, is somewhere near here, scouting out new positions for his units. Remember from part 1 of this video that Meade sent his chief engineer, Brigadier General Warren, to find out what was happening on Little Round Top. Warren found the hill basically unmanned, and Warren was looking for a division, or at least a brigade, to occupy the hill. Warren sent off an aide to ask General Sickles, the 3rd Corps commander, for troops. General Sickles, of course, had no troops available. Sickles' corps is in deep trouble and also looking for reinforcements. The aide then approached General Sykes, commander of 5th Corps, the Union Reserve. All this is probably happening in the area between the Peach Orchard and Wheatfield, maybe here. Vincent's brigade, meanwhile, had stopped, waiting for orders, here. What happened next is described by Oliver Norton, who is an eyewitness. Norton was the brigade bugler and was supposed to stay close to the brigade commander, Colonel Vincent. Both Vincent and Norton were mounted, and Norton carried the brigade's flag. As Norton's description begins, Warren's aide has just passed to General Sykes the request for troops to occupy Little Round Top. For context, the three people called out in the following quote are General Sykes, commanding 5th Corps, General Barnes, who commands a division in 5th Corps, and Colonel Vincent, commander of a brigade in Barnes's division. And here's Norton's version of the story. Sykes immediately sent one of his staff to direct Barnes to send one of his brigades. Barnes had not returned to the division. Vincent was sitting on his horse at the head of the column, waiting orders. Seeing Sykes's aide approaching, he rode forward to meet him. I followed with the flag and distinctly heard the following conversation. "Captain, what are your orders?" The captain replied, "Where's General Barnes?" Vincent said, "What are your orders? Give me your orders." And the captain answered, "General Sykes told me to direct General Barnes to send one of his brigades to occupy that hill yonder," pointing to Little Round Top. Vincent said, "I will take the responsibility of taking my brigade there." Edwin Coddington, in his book, The Gettysburg Campaign, described the moment this way. It was a bold decision, for he risked court-martial by taking his brigade away from the division without Barnes's permission, unquote. Vincent and Norton rode ahead, and the brigade followed them. And notice that Hazlett's battery is approaching the base of Little Round Top. This battery was commanded by Lieutenant Charles Hazlett and was part of the 5th Corps Artillery Brigade. The Artillery Brigade was ordered forward with the rest of the Corps, and the brigade commander had chosen Hazlett's battery, which was one of 5 batteries in the brigade, to go to Little Round Top. And also see here that while Robertson's Confederate left wing is attacking Devil's Den, his right wing has followed Law's brigade. And Law's brigade is also, temporarily, splitting apart into 3 pieces, from north to south, 2 regiments attacking Devil's Den, 1 regiment moving up Plum Run, and 2 regiments climbing Big Round Top. It probably wasn't planned that way, but General Law sent 2 regiments to attack Devil's Den, and then Colonel Oates with 2 regiments chased the sharpshooters up Big Round Top, and here we are. Stephen Sears, in his book Gettysburg, wrote that General Law was now in the rear commanding the division, and the attack was loosely commanded as well as loosely conceived, unquote. The 47th and 15th Alabama chased the sharpshooters up Big Round Top. Colonel Oates was ordered to find the Union left, which would require a turn to the left here, but Colonel Oates decides that if he does as he was told, it will leave the sharpshooters in his rear, so instead he continues up the face of Big Round Top. Colonel Vincent is scouting out positions for his Union brigade and picks a line that covers the southwest face of Little Round Top. The advantage to this line is that it covered both the summit of Little Round Top and the pathway to Baltimore Pike and the U.S. rear area. Baltimore Pike is here. Coddington explained Vincent's decision by saying that placing his line toward the southwest and below the summit cut down on the enemy's room to maneuver. Norton explains it differently and unpacks Vincent's thinking a bit more. The position chosen by Vincent for his brigade was the best possible for preventing the Confederates from turning or capturing the hill. Had he placed his men on the crest of the ridge, the enemy could have turned his flank and attacked from the rear. Or having opened the way, they could have held it for Hood's whole division to follow, cutting Meade's communications, capturing his trains, and forcing him to leave his strong position and attack the Confederates in the open. Not all the troops that could have been placed on the crest of Little Round Top could have prevented this if the spur occupied by Vincent's brigade and the valley along the north side of Big Round Top had been left open." Unquote. As 3 Southern regiments approach, Vincent's brigade takes position and sends out skirmishers. The 20th Maine is on the left end. They're now the left flank for the whole Army of the Potomac. And you might ask, why is infantry guarding the flank? Where are the cavalry? Buford's cavalry division was guarding the flank that morning, but they were sent away around noon, and through an error they were not replaced. So an infantry regiment is now guarding a very thin left flank. Colonel Vincent famously orders Colonel Chamberlain, commander of the 20th Maine, "You understand. Hold this ground at all costs." Unquote. Translated to non-military terms, the order is that the 20th Maine must not retreat under any circumstances. Harry Fans, in his book Gettysburg, the Second Day, wrote that when these 3 regiments, the 4th and 5th Texas and the 4th Alabama, came out of the trees into the saddle between the round tops, they must have been staggered by the sight in front of them. Unquote. Here's a Matthew Brady photo of Little Round Top from the Library of Congress collection. They see a steep hill with Union signalmen on the summit and Union infantry on the slope above them. The 3 Confederate regiments paused, dressed their lines, and advanced. Next, see Part 3.